with that weather out there, right? So thank you so much for being here. I just want to ask you to look at your program for a minute. Look at the cover of the program. You notice anything a little off? We're at a different day. Yeah. So I just wanted to ground you. In reality here this afternoon, because we're getting ready to go to a room where it happened. We are so delighted to have you here, uplifting every story and word and music, liberation and justice. And we're going to go to the room where it happened, where this conversation takes place. And Deb's going to speak more about that. And then we're going to hear some music that's been inspired by Phillis Wheatley and her spirit and work. Now, you guys are in church. This is our chapel. Welcome to Old South Church in Boston. And the work that you're experiencing this afternoon is part of the work that has been ongoing at this church for about 10 years. It's our Grace Speaks work. And this work is grounded in theology that God loves everybody, right? And so we do not see it as a program that has a beginning or an end. Rather, we see it as a journey that takes us to hard places and conversations, talking about what it is that we need to do as BIPOC members as well as other members in our congregation. What can we do to really reflect the kingdom of God? So that's the work, and that's what you're experiencing. A little bit of our work this afternoon. You're always invited back. Amen. You're always invited back. So with all that said, I don't think I need to say anything else, but one more thing. It's a quote by Anne Lamott, which I really just found and I just love, and I want to share it with you. She says, when people die, they can leave you things, but the best thing is that they can leave something within you, right? And so today we have an opportunity to experience something very deep that our ancestors have left to us, that is going to come to us in sound of voices. And so we honor those voices and our ancestors, and I'm so grateful to have you here. We have two fabulous women doing this work, and I want to invite Ashley Gordon, who I met a few years ago, who is one of the co-founders of Castle of Our Skins, to just come up. I want you to see her, because she's pretty cool. Come on! She's all right. You want to say a word or two?
Sure. I'll just say just briefly as an introduction, then certainly turn it over to Debbie to introduce the play that we'll experience. But my name is Ashley Gordon, along with Anthony Green, who is also here, co-founded Castle of Our Skins. We're in our 12th season, a concert series and education series to celebrate all things Black. So the music of Black composers, Black artistry, Black history, and today certainly being no exception. The work that we'll hear performed by Ariel, mezzo-soprano, and Sarah, pianist, includes Phillis Wheatley's own words. So Anthony Green's piece, which we'll hear first, sets Phillis Wheatley as well as Harriet Jacobson's Journal of Truth to song. And then following the play, and Hymn to the Evening by James Dargan also sets Phillis Wheatley's work. The other music that you will hear is also composed by Black composers, which again is our work, is our mission. So we're excited to be in conversation with this beautiful play, all centered around patron saint Phillis Wheatley Peters. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Old South Church, the Gordon Chapel. This is a project and a moment that has been gestating for quite a while, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be welcoming you here in this space to see my play with Castles of Our Skin. The play of A Revolutionary Encounter in London is a two-character play about the meeting that really happened about 252 years ago between Phillis Wheatley and Benjamin Franklin when they met in London. She was enslaved here in Boston and was sent to London for the publication of her book of poetry later that year. And they met when she was there. She spent about 6 weeks in London, and she met a host of notables, amongst which were one Benjamin Franklin. And so this depicts that moment. We know it happened based on several letters, two that he wrote and one that she did, but we don't know exactly what happened. So I have imagined how this encounter may have played out, and we can talk about all of that later. So imagine, if you will, we are in London, 1773, end of June, early July, in a very opulent salon space of a mansion of a wealthy family right here. And without further ado, we'll begin the program with the music of Castle of Our Skins. Thank you very much.
Adieu, New England smiling meads, adieu, the flowery plain. I leave thine opening charms, O spring, and tempt the roaring main. In vain for me the flowerets rise and boast their gaudy pride, while here beneath the northern skies I mourn for health denied. Celestial maid of rosy hue, oh, let me feel thy reign. I languish till thy face I view, thy vanished joys regain. Susanna mourns, nor can I bear to see the crystal shower, or mark the tender falling tear at sad departure's hour. For thee, Britannia, I resign New England's smiling fields, to view again her charms divine, what joy the prospect yields. But thou, temptation hence away with all thy fatal train, nor once seduce my soul away by thine enchanting strain. Thrice happy they, whose heavenly shield secures their souls from harm, and fell temptation on the field of all its power disarms. Oh, why, Mr. Franklin, I did not hear you enter.
Oh, apologies, Miss Wheatley. I did not mean to startle you, but I dare not disturb you while your muse was calling. Is that a new poem?
It is. It is called A Farewell to America. I wrote it on the eve of my sail to England. I had much leisure to review it, and during the 6-week-long journey. Nevertheless, I continue to revisit it and my other poems.
Well, what a pleasure it is to meet you, and have occasion to see the mistress of verse at her task. One hears near and far of Miss Phillis Wheatley.
Oh, certainly not as much as one hears of Mr. Benjamin Franklin, scientist, inventor, journalist, writer, government official, statesman.
Please, I am just Ben Franklin,
Sir, you
printer.
are too modest.
Your modesty may exceed mine. You have captivated the populace and are the toast of London.
That is most kind, but you can hardly say such things.
No, I will not let you deny it.
Please, sir, do have a seat.
I left my card for Mr. Nathaniel Wheatley, but I see that he does not condescend to descend to greet me. I hope that it is not indicative of his disapproval of our meeting.
Oh, you must not imagine anything being amiss. Young Master Wheatley, as all his family, have nothing but kindness itself to me. With the retirement of his father, he is now responsible for the family's business. He's much engaging, seeing to various aspects of their commercial interests as well as a few personal matters. In any case, here in England, I am my own mistress, keeping my own schedule, seeing whom I choose, and acting on my own behalf as I see fit. My apologies, Mr. Franklin.
For what? Oh, the tea. I can only imagine how news of the new Tea Act will be received when it arrives in the colonies. This, I fear, will be even less tolerable than the previous acts.
I hope you will not misconstrue the choice of beverage to be a political statement on my part. The English I've come to learn are completely wedded to their tea.
Like Dr. Samuel Johnson, they amuse the evening, solace the midnight, and welcome the morning with their tea. But given the circumstances, I have quickly become a devotee of coffee.
Coffee, which makes the politician wise and see all through all things with half-shut eyes.
Indeed, from Pope's The Rape of the Lock. Perhaps all involved in politics should be required to drink it.
I'd asked the cook to prepare coffee or hot chocolate, but apparently there was a fresh shipment this morning from the East India Company, and, well, you see the result.
Yes, as much as I have become accustomed to drinking coffee, I do nevertheless enjoy a nice cup of tea now and then. And I admit this only to you, Miss Wheatley.
Oh, your secret is safe with me. May I pour you some, Mr. Franklin?
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and sir, please do help yourself. Oh, not to worry, they contain no meat.
Ah, appreciate your kind attentions. Delicious. Your cook has redeemed herself.
How did you come to this practice of forsaking meat?
When a young printer's apprentice, I happened upon Thomas Tryon's book, The Way to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. In it, it avoided advocating foods obtained from violence and oppression. I decided that a vegetable diet was the moral and ethical.
And I am impressed by these concerns, which are most kind and humane.
Do not think me completely altruistic, Miss Wheatley. There were also practical considerations. Such a diet saves time in the kitchen and is easier on the purse, allowing me to buy and read more books. I also found that such a diet promoted a clearness of ideas and a quickness of thought. It enabled me to finally comprehend mathematics, which had always eluded me.
A challenging subject and not a favorite of mine. I imagine that a person who treats animals with such consideration must treat his fellows no less well.
I would never kick a dog nor whip a horse. However, I have been sorely tempted to do violence when greatly abused by Parliament. And without dispelling too much of your admiration, I should mention that I could not long resist the temptation of grilled fish. But since fish eat other creatures of the sea, I felt more than justified in consuming them again.
Oh, Christ ate fish and fed it to the people.
And now and then, when dining outside of the home and I am served meat, I will partake.
No, the Bible does not prohibit it.
Yes, my visit. It was prompted by my niece's husband, Jonathan Williams. You must know the Williams.
Ah, yes, they live next door and are good friends.
Yes, well, I have come to pay my respects, Miss Wheatley, and offer you my services from one Bostonian, if you will, to another. Despite the current strain between the colonies and England and the delicacy inherent to my position, I do not think myself immodest to say that I am not without some influence. And if I can assist you at all during your stay, I sincerely hope that you will call upon me.
Well, if I find myself in need of your services, I will not hesitate to do so. But I have been blessed with a fine circle of friends, so should have much ready assistance.
I see I am just one of many paying court and offering aid to our celebrated African poetess.
Still, your offer is most appreciated, as is your considering me a fellow Bostonian. Although not born there like you, it is where I have lived most of my life and has come to be my home.
I am not sure where to call home myself. Boston, the city of my youth, where my relations still live. Philadelphia, where I established myself and my wife and children live. Or London, the land of my forebears, where I have spent almost near 18 years.
Our paths have been divergent, mine taking me to Boston and yours away from it, both as circuitous as Ulysses' Odyssey.
Well, happily, our paths have had the good fortune to cross here. You know Homer as well as Pope, I see.
Alexander Pope is a poet I most esteem. I've read his translations of both Homer epics.
Well, one can see that you have had a comprehensive education. That is evident from your poetry.
I have studied all the traditional subjects, though with a decided preference for those of the arts rather than the sciences. I was a very precocious child and was fortunate the Wheatleys were so indulgent and encouraging, allowing me to satisfy my curiosity for learning. First, taught by members of the Wheatley family, the Reverend Biles, taking an interest in my education, helped me to continue it. He and others graciously opened their extensive libraries to me. No one is more alive to the privileges I enjoy and my good fortune than I.
I am not one to say, beware of bookish women. All individuals should be educated. It is a great waste of talent otherwise.
I am in complete agreement, Mr. Franklin, though many are certainly startled by my erudition.
You will appreciate that I am a member of a philanthropic group which, among other things, strives to promote learning among the Africans in the colonies.
A most worthy effort.
You seem a voracious reader, like me. What texts do you prefer?
The Bible, which is the best of books, containing an endless treasure of wisdom and knowledge. Shakespeare, of course, the myths of ancient Greece, and the poetry of Milton, Horace, Virgil, Ovid, Terence, in addition to Pope.
I could not agree more about King James's Bible. And regarding Shakespeare, 'tis true, there's magic in the web of it. Despite my lack of talent and my father's disdain for poetry, I always appreciated verse, having been exposed to it by my Uncle Benjamin. He passed to me his love of words and aspiration of able communication. I have read Milton and Pope, but also Dryden. Pope said that he owed much to Dryden for helping him to create the first complete English translation of Plutarch's Lives of the Noble Greeks and Romans. Dryden, too, you should read. For me, Plutarch's Lives was a revelation. In it, one finds examples of justice, courage, and humility, as well as good governance. King George and his ministry should all be given copies.
Well, several here have very generously given me funds to purchase volumes of the great works. I'll have to seek out those of Dryden as well.
And what of philosophy? Its study helped form my mind and thinking.
It does not hold much interest for me, for it can be at odds with Scripture, and I find the writings of Hume and Kant very unfortunate. For men of learning, their conclusions regarding one of the burning questions of the day seem conceived only to justify and perpetuate human bondage without any basis on fact.
You alone are proof to contradict their views. Earlier this year, my friend and fellow Philadelphian, Dr. Benjamin Rush, published his address against slavery in the colonies, holding your singular genius and accomplishments.
Mr. Rush flatters me with his praise. His wife, Julia Stockton Rush, is a very kind patron, and she must have acquainted him with my writings.
That sort of praise is not the exception, but the rule.
Perhaps. But to prove the case, I've had to allow myself to be paraded and put on display as an exotic curiosity before society for its pleasure and amusement. Reading my poetry or conversing on a variety of learned subjects in fashionable drawing rooms to be petted and vetted. I've become a sensation, the black slave girl with the wondrous talent.
One can feel like the trained bear trotted out to perform. I have felt similarly regarding my experiments and inventions. Sometimes I think the only reason that I am invited to a party is to entertain the company with my glass harmonica or some scientific trick.
Oh, have you not brought your harmonica to play for me then?
Oh, Ooh.
Well, no matter. As Providence has deemed, you may now demonstrate your lightning experiment.
Ah, yes. Well, had I only foreseen to bring all of the necessary equipment.
Oh, that is a pity.
What greater would have been to let these pasties languish and get cold.
Provoke no more Jehovah's awful hand to hurl its vengeance on thy guilty land. He grasps the thunder and he wings the storm. Servants their sovereign's orders to perform. The storm has been brewing the past several days. It now announces itself with the ferocity of the war of the Titans.
Another great storm is brewing, I fear.
That, as with everything, is in the hands of God.
Perhaps. It will still take the efforts of men and women to resolve the great matters of our society. Those lines that you just recited, they are unfamiliar to me. Are they from one of your poems?
Yes, from Goliath of Gath.
Ah, the story of David and Goliath. We are much like David preparing to face our own Goliath, which is England.
Oh, well, what do we have to fear then? Look what happened to Goliath. Do not mistake what I said earlier, Mr. Franklin. I'm very proud to be acknowledged for my abilities and have my work praised. It is flattering, this recognition and admiration, but it is not without its degradations and embarrassment.
Celebrity can be a double-edged sword.
I am simply an example of the potential within all the African race. Nevertheless, there are those who still doubt, though that is generally not the case here in England.
On that score, the English would seem the more enlightened. I take exception to Kant myself. In his essay of 1755, he had the temerity to refer to me as the Prometheus of our day. Oh, he thought me audacious for my study of the natural sciences. I am used as a cautionary tale, and am abused in the process. To my great relief, such beliefs are countered by the good opinions of innumerable scholars and constant flow of visitors who make their way to my doorstep. It was to me that the king came to develop a lightning rod to prevent a calamity similar to Brescia's. And what esteem and favor that I had with the king then. Goodwill is so easily squandered, and little do we realize until it is too late.
What is more constant than change? We must adapt as best we can, accepting what we cannot change and leaving in the hands of the Almighty.
Using my own words as well as Scripture to comfort and encourage me. You are very clever, Miss Wheatley. How did you come to write?
Seeing the extent of what others compose made me esteem it a valuable art.
And your preference for verse?
Oh, I found it the best way to express myself.
Sensible to my failed attempts at verse, I have generally stuck with prose. We must look to what serves us best. But I've always enjoyed the poetry of others. And if I may, imagination, who can sing thy force? Or who describe the swiftness of thy course? Soaring through the air to find the bright abode, the thundering palace of the imperial god. We of my pinions can surpass the wind and leave the rolling universe behind. From star to star the mental optics rove, measure the skies and range the realms above. And there, in one view, we grasp the mighty whole, or with new worlds amaze the unbounded soul.
Why, Mr. Franklin?
Your admirers are legion, I among them. Your poetry appears here in print, and friends like the Rushes send along copies of newspapers of the day. This poem imagination strikes home with me. I much appreciate its allusions to the natural world.
To have one's scribblings read and appreciated, oh, you've paid me the highest compliment, sir.
Your poems are hardly scribblings. They are truly inspired.
I do feel the divine hand upon me when I write. It must be hard to live far from your family and friends for so long a time. I've not been abroad 2 months and miss Boston, the Wheatleys, and my friends there terribly.
Duty brought me here. For the benefit of my family and fellow citizens, I make the sacrifice. And one does make new friends, as you yourself know.
You know, I can see the Franklin family box from where I sit in Old South Meeting House.
You're a member of the congregation.
Since my admittance 2 years ago, though I must sit in the upper balcony. I like to think that up there I am closer to God.
I was baptized there the day that I was born, when it was the Cedar Meeting House, well before its fine replacement was built. That January of 1706 was so frigid that the minister had to chip away the water in the basin just to get at it. Now, perhaps that it was an omen of how I would take to religion, for it has left me a bit cold. You at least could decide for yourself. I hardly had a say about it.
We don't always have as much say as we would like in what concerns us personally.
The irony is my father once thought that I might have a clerical career and planned to send me to Harvard to study divinity. But my youthful impertinence and religious skepticism caused him to reconsider and not waste our money.
You think very little of religion.
To my mind, religion serves little purpose and may cause harm. You know the lighthouse on the small crag of rock that marks the entrance to Boston Harbor?
Yes, Boston Lights on Little Brewster Island.
When I was growing up, the keeper was a certain Mr. George Worthylake, an apropos name for a man worthy of such an occupation. And he lived there with his wife and daughter and servant and slave, and the family was very pious. And despite the distance and peril, traveled across the bay to Boston each Sabbath. Early November, 17 and 18, on the way home from attending church services, after transferring from their sloop, their canoe capsized, and all 5 of them drowned, along with a friend who was visiting them. The Boston Newsletter called it an awful, lamentable providence. I say it was a damnable providence.
Certainly a terrible tragedy, but it must have been God's will.
I do not understand a God who will such things to happen, particularly to those having just served his Sabbath. I was but 12 at the time and worked with my brother James's print shop, and he asked me to recount the story in the ballad that he would print in the newspaper, the New England Courant. But as I have said, I did not have a talent for verse, and what I wrote was wretched stuff. You, Miss Wheatley, would have done the family justice with one of your beautiful elegies.
Had I known of the family and its tragedy, I would have readily composed some verse. But these are sad and pessimistic views you have on religion.
Perhaps I am too much the pragmatist. By the time I was a young man working as a printer in England, it seemed to some that I had become an atheist. Later, others thought that I might be Quaker because I lived among so many of them in Philadelphia, but not so. I am a thorough deist, believing in a supreme being who neither meddles nor intervenes, and that is the only way that I can make sense of things.
Is that all you believe in, sir?
I believe in hard work, temperance, and self-control. My feeling is that one should always try to do good. I'm a free thinker, and I think that being one may be incompatible with religion. Religion has done much against science. One need look no further than Galileo, for example.
Is that the fault of religion or men?
I only suggest that it be one's prerogative to determine one's views and practices concerning baptism and all else.
Ideally, there should be free will in everything. Still, it is man's imperfect nature that requires God's guidance. The day of my baptism, and acceptance into the congregation was one of the most joyful and essential for the health of my body and eternal soul.
You are very pious, Miss Wheatley.
And this surprises you?
Under the circumstances, yes.
'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God, that there's a Savior too. Once I redemption neither sought nor knew. Their color is a diabolical dye. Remember, Christians, Negroes, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train. I'm fully aware of the irony, Mr. Franklin. Life is laden with it and trials for us to bear, but it is up to each of us to make the most of what God, or fate, if you prefer, has put in our path. And one may have to endure great misfortune and hardship to be able to receive a greater bounty. And there is much comfort in believing in the Lord and trusting to his goodness.
I admire your strength and your convictions and reasoning. And how was your crossing to England? A long sea voyage can be tedious, but you seem to have made the most of your time on board.
More pleasant than my prior one.
Oh dear. Apologies, Miss Wheatley. That was quite thoughtless of me.
No apologies are necessary. The question was a perfectly natural one. The journey was, in fact, smooth and uneventful. The fresh salt air very beneficial. That had been the hope of my physician, who had advised a sea voyage to improve my health.
Judicious advice. I am sorry to hear that you had been ailing. I have long been a proponent of the benefits of fresh air for one's health. But that was not the only reason for your trip, I dare say. The papers have been proclaiming your arrival of the upcoming publication of your book by Mr. Archibald Bell.
I have been flattered and overwhelmed to have all my movements followed in the newspapers. I do not wonder that the arrival upon English shores of one such as myself is out of the ordinary.
And is to have a book of poetry published.
My presence in London was thought to be advantageous to promoting the sale of the book and to alleviate any possible doubts, well, that I am the actual author of the work. The most sensational expressions have been employed with such vehemence and frequency that I have started to believe them myself. Born in the wilds of Africa, one of the greatest instances of pure, unassisted genius that the world ever produced, the ingenious, extraordinary Negro poet.
Beware newspapers, I say. They can be exulting and excoriating fickle in turn. To be one of their subject does require the head of a duck and the back as one as well.
This from a man who printed them.
Then who better to judge? Though it is mostly of their subject that I have obtained my education. But do let me congratulate you, Miss Wheatley. Publication is no easy feat.
In my case, it has been more of a Herculean labor.
Propaganda pamphlets are more lucrative to print than volumes of poetry.
That was just one issue, to dispel any disbelief that the poetry was written by me, a young enslaved woman. Preceding my poems in the manuscript, I had to include a letter from my master, John Wheatley, describing my circumstances, as well as an attestation signed by no less than 18 of the most respectable characters of Boston, including Governor Thomas Hutchinson and Lieutenant Governor Andrew Oliver.
Ah, our good governor and his lieutenant. Regarding them, I do not have much regard. And I am sure that the feeling is mutual. They are not true friends of those that they are charged to govern.
Oh, you have a rather low opinion of our two highest governmental leaders.
Good governance reflects the general sentiments of its citizens and acts to create laws for their benefit. Hutchinson and Oliver follow too completely the dictums of Parliament, hamstringing the People's Assembly and impinging on the liberties of the process. Just look at the act to prevent the importation of Negro slaves to the Assembly proposed 2 years ago, rejected by Hutchinson. You must have found that distasteful.
That was hoped to be the first step in the abolition of slavery in Massachusetts. But Governor Hutchinson's rejection was prior to the Somerset case. It will probably be more favorably received now.
One is rarely patient for liberty.
Though patience is a virtue, however, I too admit to some impatience regarding certain things.
And despite all those steps, it was still not possible to publish in Boston.
Only one publisher was willing to take on the project, but then the book proposed as Mr. Russell was not wisely conceived. There was a want of interest and insufficient subscriptions. My Mistress Susanna was undeterred. If my book could not be published in Boston, then we would look in another direction.
London publishers are the more prestigious, so publication here will have its advantages.
The book's publication has turned into a historic event which Mr. Bell is capitalizing upon with no shortage of hyperbole.
One must make the most of hyperbole and all else one can.
Publishing here also necessitated a rethinking of the content for the sensibilities of those living on this side of the Atlantic. I particularly wanted to accommodate those of my patroness, Selina Hastings, Countess of Huntington.
She is an important person to have acquired.
Several of these poems would not be agreeable. They had to be rewritten or discarded and replaced by others. I could not include a poem like The Affray on King Street.
Oh, I dare say not. You must have been at a great proximity to the townhouse where the bloody massacre occurred.
We were barely 2 streets away. We heard it all. It was impossible to do otherwise. The shouting, the terrible sounds of muskets firing, the cries and screams afterwards, it was terrifying. And I had not been frightened in so very long. And the bells of churches tolled all night long. The whole city was in uproar and frenzy.
All colonials were outraged, and such wanton acts sorely test our union with England and make my task all the more difficult.
The dramatic and tragic have always incited my muse to create. The poem is a tribute to the bravery of the 5 souls, one, a former African slave, who lost their lives in the cause of liberty. Thousands came to attend the funerals and see the men laid to rest in the granary burial ground.
Innocent blood crieth unto God from the ground. It crieth for vengeance. The path to liberty is generally a bloody one.
On the other hand, I have most assuredly included my poem to the King's Most Excellent Majesty, praising his wisdom in repealing the Stamp Act in 1768.
He had the intelligence at least to realize the folly of that.
Convinced by the conviction of your words, we of Massachusetts are indebted to you, Mr. Franklin, for your representation.
I hope that I may perform my task with some sagesse and finesse. Still, it has been much like threading a needle wearing mittens. I had believed that by compromise, mutual understanding, and respect, that we would be able to convince Parliament to grant the colony's rights, and with these rights assured, contentedly remain nestled in the bosom of Mother England, for I do not believe that obtaining them requires severance from England. I love each well, and believe that we are stronger together than apart. I cheered as loudly as any other at the King's coronation. But the King and Parliament's governance of the colonies has not been without its blunders. And let us hope that they see reason and treat the colonies with a just more hand. Otherwise,
And what do you foresee?
that we will go on injuring and provoking one another till the only possible conclusion is reached: revolution. For revolutionary fervor is charging the air. And if Parliament and the King persist in their course, they will most certainly lead us into war.
Surely you will be an instrument for restoring harmony.
No one would be happier than I. But I have used all the smooth words I can muster to little effect. And to kick a little when superiors are much in the wrong may occasion greater consideration. Although the omens are inauspicious, I still retain some hope that this latest contest between Massachusetts and the British government may be resolved. And strange to think that I, who ran away from Boston for its conservatism 50 years hence, have joined myself in the support of its rebellious cause.
Oh, and why did you leave?
Well, that is quite a tale. The long and short of it is that after a childhood that passed very sweetly, my life began to have its oppressions when it came time to find a vocation. My father would not permit me to go to sea, and his candle and soap-making business was anathema to me. A fitting trade for a bookish lad like me seemed to be printmaking, and as luck would have it, my brother James had just returned from England with a printing press. And so I came to feel my apprenticeship much like indentured servitude. Oh, so tyrannical and resentful was he of any rival pen. Looking back now, I think that I may have been too saucy and provoking. At the same time, my more liberal ideas regarding religion were irrevocably out of accord with those of my parents. There was nothing left but to throw down the shackles and leave town.
Freedom is a most desired state, one cherished by all creatures. It is interesting, is it not, that citizens of the colony seek the liberty they deny other beings on their shores. That is something they marvel at here.
I have great sympathy for enslaved persons, as you can see from my efforts to educate them.
And still, it seems incongruous how any Christian society can perpetuate such a cruel institution.
Yet there are a number of biblical precedents for slavery in both the Old and New Testament.
The Bible neither advocates nor justifies slavery. It simply records its historical existence. May I assume, sir, that you do not keep slaves yourself?
Well, to be honest, Miss Wheatley, I do have one, Peter. But I do not consider him as such. Rather, he is a much valued servant and confidant. He is indispensable to me. And I assure you that I have always been the most considerate and complaisant in my treatment of them.
Them?
King was another, was his name. He left me some time ago, shortly after we arrived here in England. But Peter has always stayed with me.
King. King is an interesting name for an enslaved person. And Peter must have a similar regard for you. It has been made clear to me, my many friends here, that one need not remain enslaved in this country.
Yes, since Lord Mansfield's decision just a year ago, freedom is more firmly in one's own grasp, only a few steps away. Then why, may I ask?
Why don't I take those few steps?
It must be tantalizing to imagine liberty so close at hand.
Oh, it is a most tantalizing prospect. As glorious as my time here in England has been, and as hard as it will be to leave, it can still be harder to imagine quitting one's home. Everything, even liberty, comes with a price. And one must have great courage and the wherewithal to start afresh in a strange land.
So, you have given it some thought then?
What? Leaving? Like your king? Well, certainly is something to contemplate, to imagine, to dream of, but where would I go? How would I make my way? There are many practicalities, many things to consider.
You have friends and supporters here.
Perhaps. The Wheatleys have been exceedingly good to me. They have become my family and done so much for me. They are why I find myself with this prospect of liberty before me. Were I to up and leave, I would be the most ungrateful wretch that ever lived. To never see them again, I do not believe I could bear that. And my Mistress Susanna remains gravely ill. She needs me and awaits my return. I must go back.
Liberty often requires sacrifice, and each of us must determine which are worth making. These are lovely surroundings with which to be lodging, Miss Wheatley. There is no sacrifice to be made here that I would think. Mr. John Thornton is one of the wealthiest businessmen in London. I know him only by reputation. You certainly have your friends in high places.
I am grateful for the munificence of Mr. Thornton's kind invitation to stay with him and his family in their fine home. He's a very generous Christian and a good friend of the Wheatleys.
I think that I may surmise how you came by your patroness.
The Wheatleys and Thorntons are both friends of Countess Huntington, helping to finance her religious initiatives, and those of the good and kind Reverend Whitfield, who was her chaplain.
Ah, yes, the preacher of the Great Awakening. Did you know him?
I had the pleasure of meeting Reverend Whitfield on his tour of America in 1764, when he came to Boston and stayed with the Wheatleys. Despite my youth and position, he showed me great consideration and respect, and we conversed freely during his visits.
You must have found his teachings refreshing.
Oh, he was truly the people's preacher. Considering every person, no matter the color of their skin, of social status, of equal worth, and cut from the same cloth as the Creator. All were welcome at his sermons as brothers and sisters in Christ. I would go with Mr. Susanna often to hear him speak, and he was a spellbinding orator, and his words would galvanize all assembled. He gave the impression of addressing everyone individually, even when speaking to the most massive crowd.
Quite some years ago, well before you were even born, I attended his revival meeting of 1739 in Philadelphia, and I remember that he had a loud and clear voice, articulating his words and sentences so perfectly that he might be heard and understood at great distance. And as I have a scientific curiosity that is difficult to restrain, I performed an impromptu experiment to test the Reverend's prowess when he preached one evening from the top of the courthouse steps at Market and 2nd Streets. Both streets were filled with his listeners for a considerable distance. Now, retiring backward down the street toward the river, I computed that he might well be heard by more than 30,000. Hearing him speak leaves no one unmoved, no matter one's beliefs. And for all the good that he did and preached, you realize he too owned slaves. He decried not the institution, nor demanded emancipation, but advocated for the improvement of consideration and exposure to Christianity.
More tea, Mr. Franklin?
It seems that it was expedient for Reverend Whitfield to turn a blind eye to the moral issue for economic necessity, making use of the labors of the slaves in the southern colonies for the benefit of his orphanages and his missionary efforts.
It is unfortunate that expediency is all too often necessary to the achievement of favorable ends, but one should take the measure of a person as a whole. The goodness of grace of Reverend Whitfield is undeniable. After Boston's Great Fire in 1760, he raised a considerable sum to help those who were suffering. He felt his loss keenly upon learning of his death, soon after he had been in Boston when he last toured. Never had I witnessed such an outpouring of grief.
You may imagine the reaction here in his native England.
In that atmosphere of general mourning, I was awash in inspiration to create a fitting tribute to he who had meant so much to so many. Hail, happy saint, on thine immortal throne, possessed of glory, life, and bliss unknown. We hear no more the music of thy tongue. Thy wonted auditory cease to throng. Thy sermons in unequaled accents flows, and every bosom with devotion glowed. Thou didst in strains of eloquence refine, inflame the heart, and captivate the mind. Unhappy we the setting sun deplore, so glorious once, but it shines no more.
In the poem, you pay tribute to the Countess Huntingdon. That must not have escaped her notice.
If you find me shrewd, I have that and all else to thank my mistress Susanna for. Whatever recognition and success I have reaped is attributed to what she has sown. Her sage counsel and gentle guidance, her unwavering support and energetic commitment. It was upon her advice that I sent Countess Huntingdon a copy of my elegy to Reverend Whitfield, enclosed in a personal letter of condolence. Mr. Susanna also arranged for the printing and distribution of my poems, their publication in newspapers in the colonies and in London, creating my notoriety and acclaim.
One can understand your gratitude to the Wheatleys and all you owe them.
In turn, the Countess became an important champion of my book. She has praised my poetry and graciously allowed me to dedicate the volume to her.
A valuable endorsement, to be sure. But for such a patron of those of the African race, it is strange that she maintains the lands and slaves that she inherited from Reverend Whitfield in America.
Expediency is a lesson we must all learn. The Countess's even shrewder sense for commerce and achievement of purpose is at her urging that an engraving of my image be put onto the frontispiece as a further means of increasing interest in the book.
Will you see the Countess during your stay?
Oh, that had been my sincerest desire, but she has been very ill and retired to her country estate in South Wales to recuperate. She had invited Master Nathaniel and me to visit her there. However, for want of time before my return in a few weeks, with a heavy heart, I'll have to send her my regrets. But as a token of my gratitude, yes, I'd wanted to give her the drawing of my portrait, which was used for the engraving. Now I have to stand in for the reality.
Oh. A very fine likeness indeed. Who is the artist?
Scipio, a young man also of Africa who serves the Reverend Moorhead in Boston. In tribute to his talent, I wrote a poem to him, which is also to be in the book. That has been my only disappointment, but I have been received in England with such kindness, esteem, and real friendship. I'm overcome by the attentions I have been paid. I receive visitors here and invited to gatherings at the homes of others and taken on outings to see the city. It's all taken some getting used to. My life back home is generally tranquil and spent in quiet occupations.
Well, London is certainly the antithesis of the colonies. For one visiting from there, the city can be awe-inspiring and exhilarating, but also overwhelming and exhausting. You, Miss Wheatley, seem to have adapted well nonetheless. I first came here when I was about your age, an audacious boy whose head was filled with dreams puffed up by false promise. And I had a few friends to assist me, unlike you. There were innumerable challenges, but it was also an extraordinary time. I stayed for 1.5 years before returning to Philadelphia, enjoying much of what the city had to offer, and one should take advantages of the opportunities that come one's way. But I need not tell you that. You have had a chance to become acquainted with some of the local society, I imagine?
Yes, well, this week, Lord Lincoln, who you must know from Parliament, returned my visit, coming to see me here with the botanist Dr. Solander, who had accompanied Captain James Cook on his recent expedition around the world. Then I saw Lady Cavendish together with her sister, Lady Carteret Webb. Had tea with the poetess, Mrs. Mary Palmer, sister of artist Joshua Reynolds. She gave me signed copies of her 2 books. Yesterday, I visited Dr. Thomas Gibbons, rhetoric professor and English minister. He confided that his elegy to Reverend Whitfield was sparked by mine. Oh, I also met one of your fellow members of the Royal Society, Mr. Israel Maud.
That is quite a nice sampling of London notables. Mhm. And the king, you do not mention him.
Oh, I am to be presented to His Royal Highness King George III when an occasion compatible to our two schedules may be found.
Ah, naturally.
Mr. Granville Sharp has been a particular friend, taking it upon himself to escort me about the city and show me many of its sights. He is a great ally of slaves, and it was his valiant efforts which led to the Mansfield decision.
A decision heralded by England as it maintains its own heinous practice of impressing hundreds, if not thousands, of colonials into servitude on their vessels.
There is no shortage of hypocrisies or wrongs to right.
In any case, Mr. Sharp is a good man and much to be admired. He has been an advocate for the cause of the American colonies, and perhaps we may enlist his assistance with this other scourge. Have you ventured outside the capital?
Not beyond Greenwich. I'm much too occupied here in London.
Have you, well, that is a pity. I have made it a point to travel in the British Isles each and every summer for the benefit of my education as well as my health, and I was appalled by what I observed in Ireland on a recent trip. It is a fine country, and Dublin is a magnificent city. But the extreme poverty among the lower classes amazed me. They live in wretched hovels of mud and straw, and are clothed in rags, and subsist chiefly on potatoes. Our New England farmers of the poorest sorts are princes in comparison.
Even as one revels in the glories of this city, one sees the inequities that exist.
But that may explain the number of marvelous distractions to divert one's attention.
I've been completely dazzled. Never have I seen anything as magnificent as Westminster Abbey. It dwarfs all of our churches in Boston.
The intent, like with most things in London, is to inspire awe and demonstrate the power of the English realm. You must have appreciated the Poets' Corner.
Oh, to see where the finest of English poets and authors are buried and honored. Oh, it was also humbling, though I did not find Pope there, which disappointed me.
He was a Catholic and could not be buried at Westminster, a Protestant church. And the Tower of London.
It is a grand fortress, but a curious place, containing many wonders in addition to its horrors. What I most enjoyed there was seeing the Royal Zoo. One hears the story of Noah's Ark, of all the extraordinary animals gathered 2 by 2 to be saved from the flood. But I never imagined that God had created such a fantastic diversity of creatures. I was most intrigued to see those which, like me, were from Africa.
There is a multitude of animals in the natural world. We have but scratched the surface of their discovery. The Tower Menagerie is one of the oldest and largest collections of living specimens.
The animals were very strange to see, but also very beautiful. However, it made me sad to see those who were once roaming free in the wild now kept in cages. And worse, perhaps, was seeing the majestic lion, king of all beasts, a prisoner within the tower walls.
You forget their great scientific value. Much can be gained by having them here so that we may study and appreciate them. Their cages offer their safety as well as ours. They are well cared for, do not fear.
Even a gilded cage is still a cage.
Animals are lesser beings, put under the dominion of man by our Creator for our benefit. Oh, isn't that what the Bible says?
Given your professions earlier regarding diet and religion, your justifications regarding these poor imprisoned creatures surprises me.
Well,
I am sorry if I vexed you, Mr. Franklin.
No, Miss Wheatley, your point is well taken. There's far too much hypocrisy in the world, and I would rather not add to it.
I have been fortunate to partake in many of the amusements of the city, when not otherwise employed in the preparation of my manuscript.
Your experiences here must provide much stimulation and perhaps some inspiration.
Oh, indeed. I've written several new poems here. One about Niobe was inspired by a painting of Ovid's Metamorphosis I saw while visiting Lord Dartmouth. It is my longest, and the most recent addition to my book.
You have had a conversation with Lord Dartmouth, one of the, our dear Secretary of the Colonies, the Earl of Dartmouth.
I had a near half-hour's conversation with Lord Dartmouth. One of my poems had been addressed to him, written the prior fall at the prompting, or rather challenge, of Mr. Thomas Woodridge, an agent of his lordship visiting Boston. Mr. Woodridge was trying to confirm my abilities for the Earl, and I believe was convinced in the process.
That little surprises me. Lord Dartmouth is not my particular friend at the moment. We had such high hopes for his support of the colonies. Instead, he has been a great disappointment.
My experience has been very different. The Earl commented warmly on my poems, and he made me a gift of 5 guineas, desiring I purchase a fine collection of Mr. Pope's volumes.
You have not had to be on the opposite side of an issue with that man, though perhaps you are simply the more politic and astute of the two of us.
I think you have mistaken the true meaning of my poem, which is about freedom and a plea for liberty for all. We have been hearing much about Lord Mansfield's ruling in Boston at the time. No more America and mournful strain of wrongs, grievance, undressed complaint. No longer shalt thou dread the iron chain, which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made, and with it meant to enslave the land.
Hear, hear. May the message of freedom be heard loud and clear everywhere.
Excuse me a moment, Mr. Franklin. Yes, coming. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Oh, I will right away. Thank you, yes. A courier has delivered this for your immediate attention, Mr. Franklin.
Oh, thank you.
I hope there's no bad news.
Not bad news, but news indeed. All will hear soon enough. The Massachusetts Assembly is planning to pass a resolution that the King remove the governor and lieutenant governor from their offices for the preservation of amity and a gesture of goodwill. This was to occur on the 25th of June, which was about a week ago, and so now it is a fait accompli.
Do you need to leave to attend to the matter?
I'm afraid I must, Miss Wheatley. Though the time has passed so agreeably, I should return now to my apartments, and we shall see what can be done to tamp down the flame of discontent, disagreement, and disunion, and to promote the cause of liberty for the colonies. But there is something that is more important, that cannot be ignored.
Oh.
That last pasty.
Oh. And so, has your scientific curiosity been satisfied?
About what?
The Afric poetess. I'm sure you had your doubts. Most do.
As with all of London, she has completely enchanted me. And may I also say that the reality greatly surpasses the myth. This will surely be one of the most significant encounters of my life.
You flatter me, sir, in saying so, though I fear it may not even be a footnote in your life story, whereas it will be of great note in mine.
Oh, now it is you who are flattering me. I have come to offer you my services, Miss Wheatley, but they hardly seemed needed.
One can never have too many friends, and a true friend is the best possession, I have heard it said.
Excellent maxims. You have friends here clearly, here and back home, and I hope that I may now be counted among them. Your poetry is elegant and affecting, Miss Wheatley. It makes me aspire to be a worthy subject.
You would be a marvelous subject. I'll have to give that some thought.
I would be honored to be captured in your verse, although not necessarily in one of your poignant elegies. At least not for some time.
Perhaps you will allow me to honor you another way, permitting me to dedicate my next volume of poetry to you.
That would be a distinct privilege. I heartily consent. And if I may be of any service to you here, Miss Wheatley, please do not hesitate to call upon me.
Thank you again, Mr. Franklin, for your visit and for your offer. And of course, if there's anything I may do for you.
There is something you could do for me, Miss Wheatley.
Oh,
Your return to Boston is in the next several weeks, you said.
I sail by the end of the month.
It is but a trifle, really.
Yes.
Well, if not too inconvenient, I wondered if you might take back a package for me. A gift to be given to Jonathan Williams upon your arrival.
You just trust the mail?
Well, let us just say that my position as Postmaster General of the Colonies affords no guarantee of the inviolability of my correspondence. Your voyage provides a fortuitous occasion to convey several delicate items, which I fear may come into some mischief if sent by normal means.
I see. Your package will be safe among the many others of books and gifts I will be transporting home.
I would be most grateful, Miss Wheatley.
And you, sir, have shown that you are not insensible of the plight of slaves, and I hope you'll become an even greater friend to them.
I will not forget what has passed between us. Our conversation has given me a good deal to reflect on and consider.
I will send word of the date of my departure.
And I will have Peter deliver the precious cargo to you just before you sail.
Oh, well, the storm is abating.
Well, yes, the rain is clearing. But what of that other great storm? Well, goodbye, Miss Wheatley. I thank you again. And I hope that the remainder of your stay in London will be a very pleasant and fruitful one.
Good day to you, Mr. Franklin. May the Lord bless and guide you as you face the weighty tasks before you. Oh, yes, Mr. Franklin. This time when I go across the sea to America, it will not be to my enslavement. A promise has been made. I am to be emancipated upon my return, and my friends will make sure of that. Soon, with the grace of God, I will be free and on my own footing. Hail, happy day, when smiling like the morn, fair freedom rose, New England to adorn.
For here I do not
I don't know about that.
What do you want to come on? Members from Castle of Our Skins. Actually, we'll just.
If you could speak into the mic for the live stream, that will help. And if you repeat the questions from the audiences, since they won't hear us, that would be helpful.
Okay, sounds good. I'll pass. The mic is on, and we will. I think these are on different wavelengths, so we should be able to use. So I'll be up to get the questions and skip her about. Hi? Okay.
There it
is. It's like eating an apple. You have to get very close. Okay, so again, my name is Debbie Wiess. I am the author and director of the play, A Revolution Encounter in London, and I'll just take another round of applause for our wonderful actors, Catherine Phillip and Josiah George. And we're so thrilled to have Castle of Our Skins partner with us, and just another round of applause for our pianist and singer, who are amazing. And we'll be hearing about the compositions and their inspiration. I believe they used the words of Sojourner Truth, Phillis Wheatley, and other women of color. But does anyone have any burning questions for us from the audience?
Could you explain how the trip to London was organized? Did the Countess of Huntington pay for it?
Okay, good question. So I don't think I have to repeat that. So Phillis Wheatley was owned by the Wheatley family, John and Susanna, and they were a pretty wealthy merchant family in Boston. They owned their own packet ship called, appropriately, the London. It would go back and forth between Boston and London. So it was limited cost to just have Phyllis board the ship on a trip in the spring. She leaves on May 8th, 1773. She arrives in the middle of June, and then she comes back at the end of July and is back in Boston the middle of September. And Countess Huntington didn't have to pay for that, but she agreed to have the book of poetry dedicated to her, which had a great value. And she also had the wonderful marketing suggestion of having a drawing made of Phyllis that would be used for the frontispiece. And that is the only image that we have of her. Everything else you see is fabricated, imagined. Other questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I thought the play was a beautiful blend of poetry and script.
Oh, well, fantastic. Thank you so much. I will hire you for PR. Other questions or comments? Okay, we have one in the back.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the beautiful staging. I've been in this chapel before, and it's usually in a different configuration, and this was a marvelous iteration of it. I also saw, during COVID, I believe I saw a version of this previously. A small version. And anyway, if you can imagine the Hollywood squares and the Tea Party, and they had the Phyllis hand the teacup, and then but Franklin took the teacup too. So it was a marvelous iteration of Zoom theatrics.
This play has kind of been on its own journey. It's been several years in the making, and then several years in development. And now I'm remembering which iteration that was. The play originally had 3 characters, and it was on Zoom with 3 characters. And then a little later, it was trimmed and with focus on 2 characters. And it's been that way. But it has been on Zoom, and it's been in different venues all around Boston and beyond Boston. And it was, what Heather is just mentioning, is there was a presentation of about a 30-minute segment that was put on Zoom in the fall, I think it was August 2020, when a lot of things were on Zoom for theater. And amazing backgrounds were used for that. So, yes. Question back here.
Yeah, question for the actors. I wonder if you could say a little bit about your process for deciding how to inhabit and present these important historical figures, to bring them to life from a world that is hundreds of years ago. How do you go about planning those presentations?
That's a great question.
Phillis
and
first.
I think that's going to be our last question. After you guys speak about your roles, I would love to have Castle talk about the inspiration for the pieces that were presented. We'll wrap and do informal mingling and answering all sorts of questions and taking comments over refreshments. I'll start with Phillis.
Yes, so I have been portraying Phyllis in some capacity for about 5 years or more at this point in time. The first time I did was in 2019 for the 2019 Boston Tea Party reenactment. So if you ever see the big stuff that happens where you do Old South and walk down to the ship. So that was the first time I'd ever portrayed her. Then from there, I started working and portraying her at the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum, and that was when I started to dig more into the background of Phyllis Wheatley, trying to find as much information as possible, which is quite interesting for the person I'm portraying compared to everyone else who also portrays people who did exist in Boston town during that time, because there's a lot that's written about Phyllis, but also not a lot of information about Phyllis, if that makes sense. There's a lot about her writings and thoughts about her and portrayals of her, but we don't have, let's say, a journal from her specifically. So a lot of what I interpret and take into any sort of time I'm portraying her is a lot specifically from her letters or things that others have said about her, or any interactions they've had with her, obviously specifically through letters. And my portrayal, I would say, has definitely grown and changed over time. And it's always sort of going back and forth between that she is late teens, early 20s during this time. Want to still portray someone who is sure of herself in this moment, but also the vastness and greatness of what she has accomplished and what she's experiencing, especially in this travel coming from Boston over to London, and making that travel finally in a way that has a positive impact, whereas it's completely different to her first travel across the seas, which is just traumatic experience that completely changed her entire life and her childhood and had a massive impact on her. So just trying to take all of that and put that into how I portray her.
Well, there's so much about Dr. Franklin out there with his writings and letters, and so there's a plethora of resources. So I guess in any script, it starts with the written word in it, and I'm a big fan of finding the poetry within the language. To me, there's always a cadence, a way that you can deliver a piece. You can pause here, and we certainly try a lot of lines that we've done many times. Sometimes we'll even do them a bit differently, or we'll make a new choice, or maybe the energy will go differently in live performance. But still, a lot of that homework gets put into that when you're approaching the role. Dr. Franklin has 20 years on me, so there was also the, how do I age somebody, but he's not ancient, This is before he goes back to be a delegate in the Continental Congress, and there's, you know, so much energy, I think, that invigorates him despite any physical or, you know, just the general aches and pains of getting older. My knees hurt, you know, that sort of thing. So it's a combination of choices that you make, and you try some out, and sometimes you think some work well, or they work well in the space, or they work well in a particular rehearsal, and some of them stick, some of them don't, and it's always a journey, one that's always open to new interpretation too.
I think in terms of journey and process and inspiration, I might actually turn that over to our composer, Anthony R. Green, if I can put you on the spot. And then if you wanted to share anything about performing the piece as well, too.
Oh, thank you. In 2013, Ash and I started Castle of Our Skins. And on a personal level, it was the first time that I have with immense support, did a deep dive into Black composers. The culture as a composer studying in Boston at the time was not really one that put Black composers into the minds and the education of musicians studying in the universities. And we both quickly realized that in order to study Black composers, you have to study Black history as well. And that definitely led eventually to a deep dive into Phillis Wheatley and her text. So I have set this letter, I have set one of the poems that you read today, and I've set the poem that she wrote about Scipio Moorhead as well. And I have dreams of setting more Phillis Wheatley because her voice is so unique and comes from such a different place. And I guess that place is a combination of places. But in this particular song cycle that was performed brilliantly, each of the movements is from a Black woman who was born enslaved and gained freedom. And each movement in its own way talks about liberation. And so when I came across this letter, as I was explaining to Ariel, Phillis Wheatley is using such lofty language as she naturally does to basically say that the mere fact that men want freedom is a very basic thing. So I had to set that. Yeah.
I'll just close up before we go into enjoying some refreshments and mingling together to say thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you to Old South Church for their gracious hospitality. A tremendous thank you to Grace Speaks and June Cooper and El Hilaire, wonderful partners. This has really been a wonderful journey, a great culmination, a fantastic day and afternoon. And yeah, I would just say one little detail is this idea of playing off of this wall here and making it very flat was because of the Thursday jazz service that I attended a couple years ago. Then I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to do in this space. So I'm like, I had that vision, and it's been with me, and to see it realized with good friends, parishioners, and others, new friends, is fantastic. So also thank you again to Castle of Our Skins, beautiful performances, and to the actors, fantastic afternoon. And let's enjoy some more conversation over refreshments. We have coffee, tea, and specialty cookies. Yay. Thank you.